is remote viewing and astral projection the same thing, or they're just kind of like
That is
similar?
a really good question, and I'll answer you that yes and no. If you astral project, you leave your physical body and you typically get into another body which is softer and project yourself somewhere else on the physical plane, which means to someone living in another country or the neighbor or whatever. But you kind of wander around in this reality, and people can see you. To remote view, you absolutely do not need to project the body. You just need to get data, right? So when you get more mature into this, you deliberately use your own physical or astral body as a communication tool. So you use pieces of it, but actually it's sounds complicated. It's not. You can just get data like that.
All right, welcome to the Arrakis podcast. We are here with Roger Gotthardsson. Am I saying that right, Roger?
That's perfect. Really good.
Okay,
Good
and
practice.
and Daniel Broombach. Daniel has put this whole thing together today, so we're really excited to talk to Roger. I've talked to him a few times before, and literally one of the most fascinating humans I've ever met. He is extremely experienced in all things astral projection, remote viewing, and meditation. So before we get into all of these like crazy techniques that you have and everything else, how was it that you came to astral projection, and how long ago was that?
I think my story started probably about 20 years ago now. And it started with, I say, weird experience in reality. I'm a very logical person, mathematical engineering side of me, but I saw things in reality which really didn't make sense. The outcomes of expected was not what I saw. And what I mean by that is I saw, for example, synchronicity in large scale. I didn't even know what that was. I call it event reflection. But you can say that I saw that reality mirrored in itself. And the story I was told, the fairy tale I was told by science, how things work together, it just didn't make sense for me. My experience didn't add up with the logic, and I had to make a decision. Either I was going crazy, or someone was not really telling me the truth about how reality works, and that was my starting point. I started my research. I didn't tell anyone. I studied religion. I read a lot, so I studied religion. I studied all kinds of belief system. Um, Eventually, I actually stumbled upon Carl Jung's work, and in a funny movie about Carl Jung when he talks about synchronicity. And the first time I really felt that someone else is not, it's not just me, it's actually something happening to other people as well. Now I know that, of course, but it was pretty lonely for a while. And funny story that the movie I watched talked about another movie, and they mentioned a specific film that has been about synchronicity. And I went up to my study and started to googling this, and there was this book, Eagle Has Landed, the book is called, and I thought I heard that before. And out of all my hundreds of books, I had one book with face up, and that was that specific book about the Eagle Has Landed. And then I know that I was on the right track. It continued and intensified. I had triplets of synchronicity many times each day until I was almost crazy, and I shouted out driving my car and said, I get it, there's something I have to figure out. I'll get to the bottom of this regardless of the price. If I go crazy, that's okay, but I need to figure out how reality works. And then it's completely went quiet, and I started to discover things, and I read and eventually these breadcrumbs of reality led me to the Monroe Institute, but I had many other tours as well. But in that place I learned to meditate for real.
Roger, can you tell us a
Yeah.
little bit about Monroe for
Yeah,
those who
sure.
haven't
So
heard?
it started actually as an almost like the penicillin, like an accident. When they left these petri dishes by accident, and it turns out the mold actually killed the germs. In this case, they tried to teach people things while sleeping. So they played audio tapes to people while they were asleep, and they were alternating these frequencies, and suddenly people jumped out of the body and had all kind of weird experiences. So and then they continued that track instead. I know I might be summarizing this. This is a very short overview, but this one was on the 17th, and the research then continue along that path. And that
So
place.
it was I
Sorry.
have a little excuse me, I have a little bit of understanding with Robert Monroe because of you, and
Yeah,
he Robert Monroe started the Monroe Institute, and he
exactly.
was really kind of like one of the first individuals. He seemed very similar to you in the sense that he was very logical.
Exactly. Yeah.
He had a very analytical approach to what it was that he
Yeah.
was doing, and he started figuring out how to leave his body, and then he started mapping alternate realities, right? And that's kind
Yeah. And
of
he,
the precedent.
exactly. Yeah. And actually, his patient number zero for doing these things was a young scientist. Uh, that is Thomas Campbell, and he was actually the first guy I met in this. So I jumped that, but he was the guy that introduced me to remote viewing, and he. It's a long story, but yeah, by accident I figured out that I could do remote viewing on one of his road shows in France, and it was just actually a planning session before the even event. We were supposed to see 9 objects, and I got 8 of them right, and the chance of getting one of them right is probably 1 in a million. So it was just completely off chart, and that was my remote viewing session. Maybe I should explain what that is. I don't know.
Yeah. Do you first of all remote viewing? Do you need any like special gifts for it, or is this a
No,
learned
it's training.
technique?
Yeah,
It's
you need
training.
one gift, and that is being open-minded. If you
Okay.
decided that you are a biological, biomechanical object being in time space, locked in that box, and everything that you ever know of is inside this piece of lump above your shoulders, you can't do it. You need to open your mind. You need to be open-minded in any way. You need to at least question these stories. When you do that, you're good. But it takes honestly a good portion of practice. But people around me learn how to do this after a while. If you've seen it a couple of times, someone doing it, it's much easier for you because then you know it's possible. It's just getting over that mental barrier. It's all about that. So with this is analogous to personal development, I'll say. You
Is
need
re-
to
is
open
re-
up. You need to think
is re-
different.
is remote viewing and astral projection the same thing, or they're just kind of like
That is
similar?
a really good question, and I'll answer you that yes and no. If you astral project, you leave your physical body and you typically get into another body which is softer and project yourself somewhere else on the physical plane, which means to someone living in another country or the neighbor or whatever. But you kind of wander around in this reality, and people can see you. To remote view, you absolutely do not need to project the body. You just need to get data, right? So when you get more mature into this, you deliberately use your own physical or astral body as a communication tool. So you use pieces of it, but actually it's sounds complicated. It's not. You can just get data like that by intent. The most powerful tool, or the tool you're using, is your intent, which is, by the way, the same tool as will get you up every morning. You won't get to work without intent. You won't get a cup of coffee, etc. So it's all about your intent. But you need to focus your intent, and you need to be open-minded. That's what you need to learn, and that takes practice. But let's get back to remote viewing. So remote viewing is the ability to collect information from a place where you're physically not, and you can go by 2 coordinates, either the object, and that's typically when you find missing people or missing cats or someone lose something, or someone, by the way. And what you do then is that you see the object and the surroundings, and you can see that this old lady is by a lake and there's a boat, and by that you can find the person. There's other techniques to this as well, so I'm simplifying to keep it simple, but that's one way of doing it. The other way of doing it is to be very crisp of where to look. So my exercise that I'm doing on SE Miranon, the Instagram page, is that I ask someone to put something on their kitchen table, anything that I can draw. It's more fun if it's simple. If it's a very complicated object, and the worst object would be a wrinkled plastic bag. The good object could be a hammer or a fork or bumper of your car or something that is solid and easy to see. Make up your mind. You can make a drawing or whatever. But what I do is I draw that, and make notes and collect as much data as I can get. Take a picture of it and send it to you. And I put those pages on se.miranon, the Instagram page, so you can see it for yourself. That usually changes the belief system of people. Why do I? Yeah.
The CIA was using this as well.
Yeah,
right?
they were experimenting.
Probably
So
still are.
if you know what to Google, it's actually on CIA's own homepage, but together with 12 million other documents. Actually, the number 12 million is correct. So they released 12 million documents about this, but some of them are exactly what I say, right? But they put people in an isolated room with a lot of guards, etc., etc. But it's fun enough just to do it if we are in separate houses or even rooms. But
have you ever worked with any intelligence agencies before?
I don't. My purpose of doing that, which I was coming to, is to make a point about how our reality is designed, the construction of our minds and reality itself. That's what I'm trying to get at. I can find lost cats, but it's not my purpose. I found my father's wedding ring and found relatives. Actually, my wife is doing this, so she does this sometime for me. She found a mobile phone a relative dropped, and is helping out. But so you can do that. But my intent with this is to show you that reality is different from what you think. And my picture of reality is that it's centered around consciousness. It's all about consciousness. Consciousness is the outer non-physical framework of our reality, and our physical bodies is within consciousness. I know within is a wrong word, but it's the best I can use to make people understand what I'm trying to say. It's non-physical, but I think that most open-minded people realize that we are not tied into our physical body. There's something else, at least love, right? We can talk about creativity and inspiration and go from there, and then all the way to actually soul traveling and connecting to each other in magical ways. But this is the path I'm trying to actually demonstrate to people physically. My point.
Would you recommend that people begin training with remote viewing before like trying to astrally project, or does it even matter?
Yeah, why not? It's a very safe way of doing that, in controlled way. Actually, when I was remote viewing in my beginning of my career, I didn't really understand what I was doing, so I scared people because I projected my body in undeliberately. I've done that a few times, actually with, I wouldn't say accident, but at least a cat needed medical attention. I can tell you that. It sounds funny, but it was a little bit sad story. But the cat went fine later on. But you can animals and people can see you, and you can scare them involuntarily.
In Robert Monroe's book, he was talking about when he first started astrally projecting, he would let his friend, who was like a neighbor, a colleague, something like that, know that he was doing this. Yeah. And like with Daniel, like I could say, Daniel, tonight I'm gonna be working on some techniques. So yeah. I'm gonna try and visit. Daniel's in Sweden, you're in Sweden, I'm here in the U.S. So essentially, what Robert Monroe was doing was projecting out of his body. He had techniques to do so. I definitely want to go over some of that. But when he would project to his friend's home, a lot of the times people were like super alarmed because it didn't look like
Yeah.
Robert. It looked like an orb or something like that,
Or a classical meeting a dead relative in your bedroom at night.
like a transparent.
That can be a little bit scary.
Right.
The experience can vary a lot. It can be anything from an emotion to actually see someone walking around. And it depends on the sensitivity of the person. Yeah, so right, before you get into someone's living room, you could ask for permission. Yeah, so or know what you're doing. So please talk to your friend before you visit them on an astral plane. You can do other fun stuff as well, and that is that you travel two people actually going at the same time to a location and then share the experiences afterwards. I've done that a lot. That's fun.
So
there you are.
what would be some if we're talking about astral projection right now? This is the last time we spoke. We didn't really get into it, but what are some techniques? Do you want to go over some techniques? Because I'm super curious as to how to get out of your body.
I love to. I actually had a lecture last night for 1.5 hours. After 1.5 hours, I had went through half my presentation, and I had to interrupt because people were getting too tired. It's a lot of stuff, but there are some exercises that are really easy to do, and I'm going to start posting them on my Instagram account. So the most people experience is that people are saying the same thing, is that these things happen by accident. When they are children and when they don't know better, very common that young people do this, or even kids, and then it disappears because it scared them. They realize they're in another body somewhere else. They don't realize what's going on.
Or like
and
a traumatic event too, right?
It's
like
a traumatic
trauma.
event. Yeah. So the first time and I say that it's really hard to be prepared on that. After 100 times, it's not that exciting, and you kind of get in control, yeah. So and it get less intense, but then you have to get into the scientific part and actually collect the data and do the statistics and math and see if things make sense. Did I learn something? And it's more a deeper understanding of it. And what I do is documenting and collect data. That is what I do. And you got to have patience. This is not a quick fix. If you think that you can just go for an hour class and then do this, it's not like that. It's like your life. It is a personal development thing, and you can't do that over a weekend, right? You need to put some hour into it. But even if you take small steps, you will see benefits. You will learn new things. You will be surprised how much you can learn from one little event. And you can meditate for hours, and suddenly you get a couple of seconds of insights. And these things you carry with you for the rest of your life. But some really, do you want me to? I can do one easy technique that is dead simple. You can do in a minute. You want me to do that?
I'd love to. Yeah, absolutely.
Okay.
Let's hear it.
So if you do this, it's kind of to unloosen your body from yourself. It's actually you close your eyes. You can do it if you want to. And then you try to remember your first car, or one of the old cars you had. Just imagine that car. Can you imagine that car? Mm-hmm. Get in front of it and put your hands on the hood. Feel the metal. Can you feel it?
Yes.
Can you feel it? Yeah. Go around. Put your hand on the door handle. Push the button, open the door. Sit in. Take a seat. Smell it. Put your hands on the steering wheel. Can you feel it?
Yeah.
Put your hands on the gear shift. Right? Now open the door again and get out. Close the door, remember the sound. And open your eyes. Is that a real car?
That was crazy.
I know.
Yeah, I had a 1988 Toyota Celica convertible that
you know what it smelled
bought.
like, right?
I know how the steering wheel felt. I knew how the gear, because my dad drove it for like 10 years before me, and like, everything was like kind of like worn down, like leather and stuff like that. Yeah. That's wild. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
But now, if you want to notch it up, you can actually be faster. You can try to do this fast, out, in, out, in, out. You're loosening up because it's about getting out of your head, right? Or getting out of your physical body. Another very easy exercise is just put your hands on your knees and close your eyes, and then you start using you actually first lift your physical hand up and put it down. You have to close your eyes. And then lift your non-physical hand, not your physical hand, your non-physical hand, lift it and put it back again. And you can clap your non-physical hands, but what you're doing here is that you're loosening up a little bit the rigidity of your body, right? So I have a number of exercises like this, and then a little bit more explanation of what they do.
What's wild, Rogers, is that like it's something that we do every day, right? We're constantly leaving our body, like when we're imagining something, when we're reminiscing on something. Yeah.
One of my two. So what I'm trying to do here, one of my objectives is to collect tools. This is my objective and my affirmation and intention. I'm going to collect the largest set of tools for astral traveling and meditation and all of these. And I mean tools. I mean tools like just stories, and I mean physical tools. I'm going to work on sounds. I'm going to work with art. That's the reason why you're here, if you want to know that. But all of these things are going to be a toolbox to help people travel without doing carbon dioxide using that. So all of these things will help you do that. And not everything works for everyone, but you have to try it out and see what it is.
One thing that's super wild is we've all kind of had this happen to us before, but like you'll think of somebody and then all of a sudden the phone will ring and it's them, right?
Yeah.
Recently, like I'm in California right now. I was thinking about one of my friends that I knew from Costa Rica, and it was the wildest thing. Like, I'm just sitting here in my living room thinking about my friend, and then all of a sudden the phone rings. Didn't even know he was in this country, and he's like, "Hey, I'm in town right now for a festival." And it was just one of these things. I was like, what are the chances? I mean, it's, he's a buddy, but at the same time, I haven't thought about this guy in 6 months. And then all of a sudden, boom, like my phone's ringing, right? What's happening there? Like when I think about Daniel, and then all of a sudden Daniel calls me, when we didn't have anything scheduled.
You're on presentation slide 4 in my presentation I did yesterday. Congratulations. Yeah. No, it has to be re-understood. The model of understanding reality is wrong. That's why these things doesn't make sense. And what you're talking about is also the story of my life. I realized that it's not like they say, we're not isolated entities in a physical reality. We might be that too, right? We are physical and we are projecting bodies here, etc. But there's something else going on. And that's something else that you're trying to put your finger on when you ask questions like these. There's something here that is not really right. I know that's not just chance. Sure, it can happen one time, right? But this time I really felt it, right? And you have to rethink the entire model. But you can fit reality model into this as well. That's fine, right? But the origin of us, even if you're using the story from the Bible or the Big Bang, is the same, right? We derive from basically nothing, which is everything, which is the singularity. That's what God said in the Bible. That's what the scientist says in Big Bang. And then we divided into different things. But we went from a unity to a non-unity. And this means that we are not separate. We are the same, in the same consciousness. But this is the interesting thing here. The division into individuals is actually the whole idea about consciousness expanding in itself, and it uses that to reflect on itself. That's the separation that is going on, and separation is actually from beginning something good, because then I can see you or I can see my wife, maybe a better example, because I was about to say I love her, right? So I can observe her, I know she's me, and I can love her. I won't say that to you, but in a way that's true as well, right? But the whole point here is that we know we're connected, we know we're separate, we're learning from each other, we are reflecting, we are developing, right? But when you get that separation too far, what do you get, right? You get Vladimir Putin in one end, right? And there's no longer love and observation, there's hate and isolation, and the separation has gone too far. We see that all over the world right now in the separation that's going on. Polarization, it's called in politics, and it's going bananas. I don't know what's going on on the planet right now, but the separation is going too far.
You know what's really crazy is that it's kind of ubiquitous through a lot of people have gotten into psychedelic research in medicine now, and then Daniel and I met because we were at a retreat center where we were drinking plant medicine. One of the things that's like just ubiquitous through all of this psychedelic research and experience is that we actually all start feeling like we're one. Like that's like one of the common threads that runs through, whether it's mushrooms or ayahuasca.
Yeah.
When people say like, what did you experience? It's like, I felt this forgiveness for myself and for everyone, and this connection with the whole planet. That kind of becomes fleeting, like as you kind of come back to reality. But what you're saying is like when you start to understand the fabric of reality, it's actually more intertwined with and more similar to what we're experiencing in these extremely psychedelic realms. That's actually more reality than what we're experiencing now.
So all these old medicines, so to say, let's call it that, is connecting you back to the dots, right? It might be a little bit fast forward, but the shamans and the other guys, they actually know how to use this as a tool to reconnect. I'd say that it's a little bit a different game than meditation. Meditation takes longer time, but in a sense, we can be patient. I'm not sure if that is true anymore in this crazy world, but we are aiming for the same thing, right? We are trying to understand who we are in relationship to each other, but I think the mindset needs to flip. We can no longer initiate the thoughts by being separate and trying to survivor makes it best. And I'm just curious about that whole idea, Darwinism, like the strongest guy survive. But what is even the ambition to live, right? It is actually, I mean, if you're alone on the planet, everyone else is dead. What's the fun of that? The whole idea is actually to create unity, and the plant medicines and all these things give you a little bit fast forward in that direction. I can appreciate that idea with respect done. If someone is doing these things for a trip, I don't respect it because that's the wrong way of seeing it. But I think that used right in the right context, it can actually expand your mind. My journey has been to actually deep dive into meditation, and I can do magic with that. So
and what you're doing is you're actually mapping these realities, like one, because okay, let's back up a little bit. Like when I'm visualizing my first vehicle, I'm like essentially in my what a normal person would call my imagination, right? So
right. So let's do that. First, actually I forgot to say, imagination is one of the best things you can do. Some people, especially Swedes, because we are terrible at translate that into fantasy or something made up. Imagination, I think, more means that you create an image of something, and there's something real there, right? That imagined car is probably as close as reality you can get without touching it physically, but you're doing it in your mind. It's a very important tool when you do mind travel as well. Don't judge yourself for not having that car physically there. You are having the experience. That's what counts. Said that, I lost my thread. I was deep diving into rat holing. Please ask the question again.
So what I'm really interested in is when you, as you start to leave your body, there's different levels, right? I mean, you can come right outside of your body, and I could look around and see my living room and go walk into my bathroom with my astral body. But you've also gone to like dimensions that are far, far, far away, right?
Yes.
In conjunction to that.
Exactly. Yeah. So I've been, and I say again, leaving your body is not really right because you weren't there to start with. Your body is a projection in your mind, right? So you were never there. When you realize that, you kind of but I know our language is limited. But so anyway, when I meditate, what I do is try to defocus from my physical body, and then if I choose to dress up somewhere, I might do that. But when I'm traveling, and this is, some people call it astral travel, but I don't think that is correct, because I think astral traveling is on the lower planes where we are, right? If you go higher up, and hence my naming of the Instagram Miranon is actually a scale that is used by it's actually by a non-physical entity that Monroe guys interviewed, the definition of this is, in our physical reality, we are measuring this distance in miles or kilometers if we are from this side of the pond. It's a common ground, right? And then we have road signs. Some say, if it says Paris, that sign is not Paris, right? It's a sign of Paris. I know I'm in Paris because someone is saying so and it feels like something else, and there's a sign, but it helps. But when you go 1 kilometer, you can actually tell someone else to go the same kilometer and same distance and actually meet up. So it's really, really convenient. When you travel in consciousness, that kilometer or miles is on the Miranon scale. And that scale is going from 1, which we are here, and indefinitely in scale upwards. But to give you some point markers, I'd say that typical meditation, when you want to relax and not thinking about work and get some energy, you're around single figures, like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. This is very individual, so I'm not judging anyone for doing that. This is really useful, so I'm not trying to judge. But when I leave 10, I can talk about myself. When I'm at 10, I do not have a physical body. So above 10, I drop my body. I'm free. 12 is the place where guys like you want to be. Creativity, inspiration, and typical, if you're an artist, you want to figure something out. It's actually a scale that is used by it's actually by a non-physical entity that Monroe guys interviewed, the definition of this is, in our physical reality, we are measuring this distance in miles or kilometers if we are from this side of the pond, it's a common ground, right? And then we have road signs. Some say, if it says Paris, that sign is not Paris, right? It's a sign of Paris. I know I'm in Paris because someone is saying so and it feels like something else, and there's a sign, but it helps. But when you go 1 kilometer, you can actually tell someone else to go the same kilometer and same distance and actually meet up. So it's really, really convenient. When you travel in consciousness, that kilometer or miles is on the Miranon scale. And that scale is going from 1, which we are here, and indefinitely in scale upwards. But to give you some point markers, I'd say that typical meditation, when you want to relax and not thinking about work and get some energy, you're around single figures, like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. This is very individual, so I'm not judging anyone for doing that. This is really useful, so I'm not trying to judge. But when I leave 10, I can talk about myself. When I'm at 10, I do not have a physical body. So above 10, I drop my body. I'm free. 12 is the place where guys like you want to be. Creativity, inspiration, typical, if you're an artist, you want to figure something out or write a book or a movie, that's the place you want to go to, or invent something new. The thing that's happening there is that your mind, and this is, I've done research on lately, I'm actually doing this purposely.
You're calling this like level 10, level 12?
Yeah, we call it Miranon level 10, yeah, focus level 10. And I'm on 12 now, by the way, on 12. So you kind of have parallel thinking. Let me do another exercise with you. Is that okay? It takes a minute. Yeah. You have two jobs. One is do this calculation. 18 plus 18 divided by 2. How much is that?
18.
Plus 18 divided by 2.
18 and 18 is 36 divided by 2.
Yeah, but not mathematically, right? Because if the division goes with 4 plus, right? So it's actually 18 plus 9, which is
18 plus 9 is 27.
good job, right? Are you fast at math? Can you feel your brain thinking right now?
Yeah.
Now I want you to imagine 9 perfect strangers in front of you, and your beautiful wife or husband or whatever is standing there. How fast can you identify that individual?
Instantly.
Instantly, right? How many seconds? 0.0 something really ridiculous slow. And you're an artist. How many megapixels of data did you actually process right now?
I mean, it's like super HD.
Yeah, right. And you can open your eyes now. This was just math. But you know that you're probably going through gigabytes of data, right? They were probably moving, and she might have another clothes on her, but you still recognize her. Did you think that, I know she's got this beauty mark on her left cheek, so that's why I reckon? No, you didn't, right? No bullshit,
Just
you
the whole
didn't.
thing.
You know that, right? You can
Yeah.
that. But this ridiculously easy math sign that a computer can calculate in a nanosecond, you really have to struggle with. Are you following
Right.
what I'm going at? Which
Yeah.
mind do you want to use when you create art? The quick one or the slow one?
The quick one.
Yeah, right? I want to put the dot here, right? Now I can. You don't think like that. There's something completely different going on in your mind. So the one part is the lower self, your physical body, your brain actually doing some math, which is absolutely ridiculously slow. One thing is the observer of you that is doing the calculation. These two things are different. 12 is the fast one by choice. And even on supercharge, you can use your mind in completely different ways. So that's the level you want to go to. But I'm just at 12, so I'm going to speed up here, otherwise you're going to fall asleep. 15 is out of time. Now you release time. You don't have time restrictions. But you don't know the effect. It can be faster or slower. You can be above 15 for 15 minutes, feel like a day or a second. It's irrelevant. It's not that relevant. It can sometimes be relevant depending on what you do. 21 is life and death. 21 is the exit of human life. 22 is dead. You're dead. And 22 is coma. 23 is the low levels of heaven. You can read about in the Bible if you want, but these are called hells and other things. Terrifying places or made up heavens. Some people go there and think they're in heaven. I'm not going to talk about any specific religion, but some of them are designed from these lower levels. And there are some really interesting drawings and stories about that. Then you 25 is actually a shared environment. 23 is single user game typically. These are not strict, but that's the typical hierarchy. 27 is when you realize actually where you are in, and then you can do regroup, come back, reincarnate, or incarnate again, which is more accurate. Go to healing, go to Akasha record, meet your guides. You can have a place or a friend and hang around with people. Super interesting place. You can spend a lifetime there if you want to. And then that's 27. Typically off-grid for then going further on. 35, which is a construct that I can't describe shortly. Right now I'm meditating a lot to 49, which is where the environment forks into what scientists call multiverse. And that's another forking down to new systems, which looks like ours.
So how far do we know how far you can go, or is this infinite?
I don't. It expands. So I mean, you typically you get stuck because there's so much to do, yeah.
How do you travel past? Because like, okay, some of these lower realms are just downright scary, right? Like you're talking about.
Not necessarily. Yeah, it depends on your. So now you need some more tools in your toolbox, right? So scary depends on how you perceive it, and if you know what you're doing, you can use NLP because it's your experience. You are interpreting data. Neuro-linguistic programming. So basically, you are doing connection to your interpretations, but you can also do filtering. So if there's a scary situation and you should be the expert of this, You can make it black and white because you are in control of your filters. So it's like being a living art project, right? So you see all this demon coming towards you. You make it black and white and really small, and you can put Mickey Mouse voice to it. It's not that scary anymore.
It's almost like a lucid dream, right?
Lucid dream is a middle state. Lucid dream, in my definition, is when you are dreaming and you are aware that you're dreaming and you are deliberately affecting your dream. You can go back to the mindset of the bad mathematician and the other one, so you can be the observer of the event. If you make yourself the observer of the event, that is a tool to control the environments because you don't need to participate. This worked in all environments that might be bad for you or different as well, also hallucinations.
So let's back up a little bit and unpack some of this, because like, what level am I at when I'm standing outside of my first car, right, touching the door handle? Like, what level is that?
I see that I'd say that you might loosen up your rigidity with your body a little bit, but you're still around here in this first realms. But you're trying out your suit, so to say. Okay,
so one of the things that I've done recently is I've kind of been experimenting with different doses of psilocybin. And as I get into the larger doses, one of the scarier things that's happened is I lose track. When I get to a certain dosage, I lose track of my body and I lose track of time, and and sometimes for like a prolonged period. And it's scary. It's actually one of the scariest things that I've ever experienced, because I just don't have any. Like when you don't have track of, when you lose track of time as like a metric, things become very disorienting. And when you don't have your body and you don't know where to go and you don't know like how long you'll be there, or if it's just forever that you're going to be in this state, how do you kind of like recalibrate when you start to experience stuff like that? Is there a technique?
That's I think it was number 10 or 12 on my presentation. So you're good. Okay. You're actually working through
We're skipping ahead here.
Yeah, so no, what you need to become is the observer. And this is what I was actually heading at when I talked about the mathematician. This is going back to the root cause. So one thing, if you're in your head, and now this is actually a negative thing, if you are focusing your entire perception on your physical body and your physical body becomes affected by medicine, you will get that effect to your consciousness because you think you are that consciousness. If you can manage to observe yourself, and this is actually the definition of personal development as well, and the explanation of insomnia, by the way, but I'll get to that a little bit later on. It's too much to talk about. In this case, you have to observe yourself, and you can take this in any let's start with the living situation because that's easier. If you're walking down the street and someone is screaming something really ugly to you, you can turn around and scream, "Why did you say that? I'm not an idiot," or "My mother is not whatever." Something like that. You react to things. You get insulted. You get angry. Your car got hit by someone else by accident, and you freak out, right? Road rage or whatever. You're reacting in reality, and this is the same thing with medicine. You're reacting to the medicine. What you can do is observe your own reactions, but then you have to leave your rigidity and actually step outside of yourself and observe your own actions. When you do that, you can say, "Oh, my car was hit by an accident. I will probably get mad in a while. Let's not do that." And this person walking by me on the street shouted something nasty to me. I don't know him. Why would I react on that? It's a choice, right? You realize you have choices. You can choose to be acting on that. This is the same thing with medicine. You can actually choose to activate which sense. But this is not the end of it. This is important. You can do this in steps. In next step, you can observe the observer of you that actually say that I can choose how I observe myself. And then you can take that to the next level, and you can observe the observer of your observation. You can go on forever. I tried 7 times and you start getting nuts. But you can back off and observe. If you do that, you'll be fine on your extra dose as well, I promise. That's the key to it.
Yeah. One of the tools that I learned in my last ayahuasca ceremony was I went into I guess you could call it like I started going down a rabbit hole, right? In which I saw some people that were no longer in my life, and it started to become like extremely traumatic. And one of the things I realized was that I decided to turn around and walk the other direction, and I didn't go there. I just made a conscious effort that I wasn't going to I'd already dealt with that, and I was deciding that I was going to go in a more light, a direction that was more positive and full of light. So essentially what you're saying is, like, as you start to lose track of your physical body or even your astral body, right, and time, you can start to make a conscious decision to observe that reaction to that loss.
Yeah.
Okay.
So I can take some practical examples. I've been into some environment which is very aggressive. It's I'd say I don't want to get into religions, but these are environments that is typically created by fear, and there are some entities that can really be assholes. But as long as you're in control of your environment, and you being the artist, you can really do that. If you see someone really angry come to you, change the background to red. You'll see what happens. You make them surprised, or you make them small and gray. Or you can say, "Yeah, right, big guy." No, you're not. You're not the big guy. I'm the big guy. You choose.
And
right?
these are like non-human entities that you're encountering in these.
In some cases they are, yes. And are they imagination of my mind? Yeah, but we are in shared use space, right? So all these imagination, all these templates for creating these instances are somewhat, I wouldn't say archetypes, but they are shared among us, right? So we have an image of something that we see. Don't think that is only your imagination. You're using shared imagination here, and this is what we do in this life too, right? We're using a shared user space, but it's more rigid, and you can't change the background as easily. It takes a paintbrush and a day, right? But in this user space, your intent. We can talk for hours. But what I'm trying to say here is that your intent is creating the reality. And your intent in this user space, the deviation from randomness is what is being affected by intent. The deviation from randomness is higher in some of these user spaces than here. Here it's very, very close to 50-50. Flip a coin 1,000,000 times, it will almost be the same because the deviation is created by intent. In these spaces, it's a little bit more lucid. By design. This is a simplification of the explanation, so I apologize for that, but it's a metaphor that is useful. So you as an artist, you can actually create the environment for these individuals. And do you meet your grandmother or your grandparents? You can. If you are in a distress situation, for example, if you are passing on yourself, these can be creations by other entities actually trying to help you. They know your belief system. They can go in and design and artifact to make you think you are meeting them. I've done those things, but you have to do ethics really, really carefully. I don't recommend that for beginners, but you can actually impersonate others in a way to assist a third party. I'd say that is close to deception, but it's absolutely possible. But you need to know what you're doing, and you probably will be blocked if you're trying. Don't do that with ego. I can tell you for sure. You will be on the blacklist.
What are, like, once you develop some tools to start to become more comfortable getting out of your body, before you really start going into other realms and helping people move on,